The alien princess believed human warriors were just tales. Until she came face to face with one, the station floated in silence above the blue curve of the gas giant, its lights shining like careful stars placed by a patient hand. To most of the galaxy, it was neutral ground. To Princess Salith, it was supposed to be a place of certainty. She stood at the wide viewing window, her hands folded behind her back, her posture perfect in the way royal tutors demanded from early childhood. Her reflection in the glass showed calm eyes, smooth silver skin, and the faint glow along her collarbones that marked her bloodline. She looked every part the future ruler of the Velari Dominion. Behind her, advisors spoke in soft, confident voices. "Human delegates have arrived," one said. "No military escort." Salith allowed herself a small, amused breath. As expected, humans were new, not newly discovered, but newly relevant. They had existed on the edges of star maps for generations, trading quietly, exploring slowly, never claiming territory with force. Every major power agreed on one thing: humans were not a threat. They were also strange. Stories followed them like shadows. Tales from minor species spoke of human warriors who could survive impossible conditions, who did not panic when trapped, who kept moving even when logic said they should stop. Salith had heard them all. She never believed them. Every empire created myths. Fear made exaggeration grow. She turned from the window and walked toward the council chamber, her steps measured, her expression neutral. This summit was meant to formalize relations, to place humanity gently but firmly within the Velari sphere of influence, not conquest. Guidance, protection, control without resistance. The chamber was wide and circular, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Light adjusted itself automatically to suit different eyes. The air carried layers of scent filters. Everything was designed to prevent discomfort. The human delegation sat quietly at their assigned place. There were only 3 of them. No armor, no visible weapons, simple clothing in muted colors. They did not look at the room with hunger or fear, only quiet attention. One of them stood out, though Salith could not explain why. He was tall, even by human standards, with dark hair touched by gray at the sides. His posture was relaxed but not careless. His eyes moved slowly, noticing details others ignored. The display identified him as Elias Rowan, listed only as a logistical advisor, a strange title for a diplomatic summit. The talks began smoothly: trade routes, resource sharing, mutual defense language that said everything without promising anything. Humans spoke carefully, politely, never raising their voices. Some delegates grew impatient, others smug. Salith watched, evaluating. Humans did not posture, they did not threaten, they did not beg. It was difficult to read them, and that alone made her slightly uneasy. Then the lights flickered. It was subtle at first, a dimming barely noticeable. Most species ignored it. Then gravity shifted, just enough to cause a ripple of unease. A low tone sounded, not loud but steady. Emergency indicators appeared along the walls. The room grew quiet as delegates realized something was wrong. A voice echoed through the chamber, calm but artificial. "Attention! Station systems are undergoing unexpected instability. Please remain in your assigned areas." Assigned areas. Salith's guards moved closer to her at once. Her advisors whispered rapidly, trying to access data streams. Across the room, panic began to spread. Some delegates demanded answers, others attempted to leave. Doors did not open. The low tone continued. The air felt thinner. Salith lifted her chin. "Maintain formation," she ordered her guards. "This is likely a technical failure." She believed that at first. Then the floor tilted again, sharper this time, and one of the overhead panels went dark. The artificial voice repeated its message, unchanged, as if unaware of rising fear. Something about that unsettled her more than alarms would have. Systems that did not adapt were dangerous. The chamber doors finally opened, but not fully. A partial release. Delegates surged, voices overlapping, order breaking down. Salith was pushed, separated, her guards blocked by bodies and failing gravity fields. For the first time in many years, she was alone. A side corridor opened as an emergency route, lights flickering unevenly. Salith moved into it without hesitation. Fear was not new to her, but she had learned long ago that freezing helped no one. The corridor was narrower than expected. No decorative panels, no status displays. It felt unfinished or forgotten. The door sealed behind her with a soft but final sound. She stopped. The air here was cooler, the lights dimmer, Her communicator failed to connect. She was not alone. A human stood at the far end of the corridor, kneeling beside an open wall panel. His sleeves were rolled up. His hands moved calmly among exposed systems, adjusting controls that should not have been accessible without tools. He looked up when he sensed her presence, not startled, not aggressive, just alert. "Princess Salith," he said, standing slowly. She stiffened. "You know me." "Yes, you are separated from your delegation," she said carefully. "So are you." There was no accusation in his voice, just fact. She studied him more closely now. This was the human who had drawn her attention earlier. "Elias Rowan, you are a logistics advisor," she said. He nodded once. "Among other things." The corridor shuddered gently. Somewhere far away, metal creaked. "What is happening?" Salith asked. Elias closed the panel and stood fully. He did not move too close, did not invade her space. "Someone is testing the station. Not destroying it, stressing it." "Who?" "A group that wants to see how leaders react when control is taken away." Salith felt a cold understanding settle in her chest. "This was planned." "Yes, and you knew." "We suspected." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why did you allow it?" He met her gaze evenly, because refusing to play sometimes tells them more than stopping the game. Another tremor passed through the corridor, stronger this time. The lights dimmed further, then stabilized. Salith felt her heart beating faster, but she did not show it. "How severe is the damage?" "Manageable," Elias said. "As long as panic doesn't spread faster than the failure." She almost laughed. Panic was already everywhere. "You are very calm," she said. "So are you," he replied. She paused. No one spoke to her like that. Not as observation, not as equality. "I will need to return to the main chamber," she said. He shook his head. "Not yet." Her guards would have objected. Her advisors would have demanded explanation. This human simply stated it. "Why?" she asked. "Because the systems controlling that area are the most unstable, and because someone is watching to see who breaks first." Salith felt a flash of anger, quickly controlled. "You presume much." "I work with probabilities," he said. "Right now, yours are better here." Another pause. The air hummed softly, adjusting itself. "You do not carry a weapon," she said. "No. You are not armored." "No. And yet you walk through a failing station like this is routine." A small smile touched his mouth, brief and restrained. "It is." She studied him, and for the first time the stories came back to her mind. Not the dramatic ones, the quieter ones. The ones about humans who endured without complaint, who adapted instead of resisted. "What do you intend to do?" she asked. "Keep things from getting worse," Elias said, "and make sure certain people learn the wrong lesson." "What lesson is that?" "That humans are dangerous when frightened." The corridor lights flared, then steadied. Somewhere, systems locked into a new configuration. Salith felt something shift inside her. Not fear, something else. Uncertainty. "If this is a test," she said slowly, "what role do you expect me to play?" Elias looked at her then, really looked, as if weighing something unseen. "That depends," he said quietly, "on whether you can stand still while they expect you to panic." The station trembled again, stronger than before. And Princess Salith realized, with a clarity that stole her breath, that the human warrior legends were not about fighting at all. They were about moments like this. The corridor stayed quiet after the tremor passed, but the silence felt heavy, like something waiting to move again. Princess Salith stood still, her hands relaxed at her sides, even though every instinct told her to demand answers, to assert control. She did neither. Elias watched her closely, not as a guard or servant, but as someone measuring balance on a narrow edge. "That was a bigger shift," she said calmly. "Yes," he replied, "they're increasing pressure. On the station, on the people inside it." The lights dimmed again, this time for longer. Emergency strips along the floor activated, casting soft lines of white light that guided movement. The air adjusted with a quiet hiss. Salith took a slow breath, the kind taught to rulers during crisis drills. "How long until failure becomes irreversible?" Elias tilted his head slightly, listening not to her but to the station itself. "If panic spreads minutes, if it doesn't hours, possibly less, possibly more." She nodded. "Then panic must not spread." A faint smile appeared on his face, gone almost as soon as it came. "That's the right conclusion." They began moving down the corridor together, not hurried, not slow, each step chosen with care. As they walked, Elias reached another access panel and opened it without effort. Salith watched his hands move with practiced ease. "You said you were a logistics advisor." "I am. This looks like engineering." Logistics is knowing how things connect, he said. People, systems, fear. He adjusted a setting, then stepped back. The corridor lights brightened slightly. What happens now? She asked. Now the station thinks it is more stable than it really is, he said. That buys time. For whom? For everyone who chooses not to waste it. They reached an intersection where the corridor split. One path led back toward the main chamber. The other descended deeper into the station's service areas. Elias stopped. This is where we separate, he said. Salith turned to him. I still need to return. Yes, he said, but not alone. Before she could ask what he meant, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows of the opposite corridor. One of her senior advisors, breathing fast but unharmed, followed by 2 guards. Your Highness, the advisor said, relief flooding his voice. We lost contact. I know, she said gently. Remain calm. He looked surprised by her tone, then steadied himself. Elias stepped back, giving space. Your presence will help stabilize the chamber, he said to Salith. Not because you command it, because you can model calm. And you? She asked. I'll go where calm is harder to find. She studied him again. You could leave the station. Yes, but you won't. No, the lights flickered once more. Somewhere far away, a sharp metallic sound echoed, then stopped. Will you survive? She asked. Elias met her gaze. Almost certainly. She inclined her head, a gesture of respect rarely given outside her own kind. Then do what you must. As she turned toward her advisors, Elias moved into the deeper corridor, disappearing into the dim light without another word. The main chamber was different when Salith returned. Not louder, but tighter. Conversations had stopped. Delegates stood close to their representatives, watching one another with suspicion. The air carried fear like an unseen fog. When Salith stepped into view, something shifted. She did not rush. She did not demand silence. She simply walked to her place and stood. The Velari guards took their positions, but she raised one hand subtly and they relaxed their stance. She waited. Slowly, the room quieted. Not because she ordered it to, but because stillness draws attention. This station is under stress, she said clearly. Not attack, not collapse, stress. Murmurs rippled, but she continued. Those who plan this are watching how we respond. If we fracture, they learn we are weak. If we panic, they learn we are dangerous. She paused, letting the words settle. But if we remain calm, she said, they learn nothing they can use. A delegate from a minor coalition spoke up. And if the systems fail? Then we adapt, Salith replied. Together. Her advisors looked at her in surprise. This was not the prepared speech. This was something else. Across the chamber, the human delegation remained seated. Elias' chair was empty. One of the humans met Salith's gaze and gave a single, slow nod. Elsewhere in the station, Elias moved through narrow maintenance passages, his communicator buzzing softly with fragmented signals. Humans checked in briefly, exchanging short phrases, data bursts, confirmations. No shouting, no orders, just information. He rerouted power away from a non-essential sector, then closed another panel. The station groaned but adjusted. Somewhere, panic was avoided without anyone realizing why. A voice crackled through his communicator. Pressure dropping in habitat ring. Compensate and vent slowly, Elias replied. Let them feel the change, not the loss. Understood. He paused near a viewport that looked into a darkened cargo bay. Through the glass, he could see movement. Delegates gathered together, helping one another secure loose equipment, sharing breathing masks. Good, he thought. The test was failing. Back in the chamber, time passed strangely. Minutes felt longer, but nothing worsened. Systems stabilized, then dipped, then stabilized again. Each time the room grew a little calmer. Finally, the artificial voice returned, different now. Attention! Station instability has been resolved. Full functionality returning. Relief spread, quiet but deep. Salith exhaled slowly. There were no cheers, no celebrations, just a shared understanding that something important had happened. Later, in a private observation lounge, Salith stood once more at a window, watching the gas giant turn below. Elias joined her without announcement. It's over, he said. Yes, she replied. They ended the test. They didn't get what they wanted, she turned to him. They wanted fear. They wanted reaction, he said. They got patience. She studied his face. You coordinated this without authority. He shrugged slightly. Authority slows things down. Then what are you? She asked. He considered the question. Someone trained to act when plans fail, she smiled faintly. In my culture, that would be called a warrior. He shook his head gently. No, warriors fight problems. We remove reasons for fighting. They stood in silence for a moment. When I return home, Salith said, my people will ask what I learned today. And what will you tell them? She looked at the stars beyond the glass. That humanity is not loud, not aggressive, not reckless. She turned back to him. But that when the galaxy stops working the way it should, humans already know how to breathe. Elias gave a small, respectful nod. As the station lights returned to full strength and ships prepared to depart, the galaxy adjusted its understanding. Human warriors were no longer stories. They were simply people who stayed calm when everyone else could not. The station slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Lights steadied, corridors brightened, and the quiet hum of stable systems replaced the earlier tension. Ships prepared to leave, and delegates gathered their thoughts along with their belongings. To many, it would become a story told in careful words. To Princess Salith, it was something that stayed deeper. She stood in a private chamber reserved for reflection, a place rarely used. The walls showed a moving display of stars, drifting gently, reminding visitors how small they were. Salith watched them without really seeing them. Her advisors entered one by one, quieter than usual. The reports are coming in, one said. No structural damage, minimal system loss. Whoever caused this covered their tracks well. They always do, Salith replied. Another advisor hesitated. Your Highness, your conduct in the chamber, it was unexpected. Salith turned to face them. Was it wrong? No, the advisor said quickly. Effective, very effective. Then remember it, she said, because the galaxy is changing. They exchanged uncertain looks, but none argued. After they left, Salith remained alone. She thought of Elias Rowan, of his calm voice, of how he moved through uncertainty as if it were familiar ground. Humans unsettled her more now than before, not because she feared them, but because she could not place them neatly into any category she knew. Later that cycle, she requested a private meeting. Elias arrived without ceremony. He wore the same simple clothing, carried nothing in his hands, and looked slightly tired, though his posture remained steady. You wanted to see me, he said. Yes, Salith replied. Because this was not meant to have a third chapter. He raised an eyebrow slightly. Most things are, she gestured for him to sit. He did carefully, as if aware that every movement carried meaning here. The test failed, she said. But the people behind it did not disappear. No, Elias agreed, they rarely do. My intelligence division believes they will adjust their methods, she continued. Quieter tests, longer ones, ones that look like accidents. And they will watch humanity closely, Elias said. Yes, she replied. That is why I am concerned. He waited. In my empire, Salith said slowly, strength is measured by control, by visible power, by obedience. She met his eyes. Humanity does not fit this. No, he said simply. They do not threaten, she continued. They do not demand, and yet the galaxy bends around them without noticing. Elias allowed a faint smile. We prefer it that way. That is exactly the problem, she said. Others will not. He leaned back slightly. Then they will make mistakes. Or they will try to force you to make them. The silence stretched. What do you want from me? Elias asked. Salith did not answer immediately. She rose and walked toward the star display. I want understanding, she said, and perhaps cooperation. He stood as well, keeping a respectful distance. Those are not the same thing. I know, she said, but they can overlap, she turned. My people will not attack humanity, that much I can promise, but others may try to isolate you, undermine trust, turn fear into policy. That's already happening, Elias said. Then why stay so quiet, she asked. Because noise attracts attention, he replied. And attention turns into targets. Salith considered this. You hide your warriors. We don't hide them, he corrected. We don't advertise them. She gave a short, thoughtful laugh. In my world, that would be considered dangerous humility. In ours, Elias said, it's survival. Days passed. The summit officially concluded, marked as successful. Agreements were signed, smiles exchanged, ships departed in orderly waves. But beneath the surface, something else moved. Small incidents began appearing across shared space. Navigation delays, supply shortages, communication errors, none severe, all inconvenient. Salith saw the pattern quickly. These are tests, she said during a secure call with Elias. Different group, same purpose. Measuring response times, he agreed. Stress tolerance, cooperation levels. They are probing the edges. Yes, she folded her hands. Then let them. There was a pause on the line. That's not a usual response, Elias said. No, Salith replied, but I am learning. Together, quietly, they began something new. No alliance was announced, no treaty signed. Instead, information flowed carefully. Humans shared methods for managing crisis without command. The Valeri shared political insight, warning signs, subtle shifts in influence. Across the galaxy, problems resolved themselves faster than expected. When a trade hub lost power, humans were already there, helping stabilize systems. When a border dispute escalated, Valeri mediators arrived with unusual patience, guiding talks instead of enforcing decisions. Those watching grew frustrated. One such watcher sat in a dark chamber far from the station, reviewing data streams. Human reaction remains minimal, a voice reported. No aggressive posture, no mobilization. They are pretending not to notice, another said. Or they are setting a trap, the first replied. The leader of the group leaned forward. Then push harder. But harder pushes created clearer patterns, and clearer patterns revealed manipulation. Species once divided began sharing notes. Something was wrong. Back aboard her flagship, Salith stood before her council. "We are being tested," she told them openly. "Not just us. All of us," murmurs filled the room. "And we are responding," she continued, "by refusing to behave as expected." One council member spoke cautiously. "This approach relies heavily on humanity." "Yes," Salith said, "because they do not react the way the galaxy is trained to exploit." "And if they fail?" another asked. "Then we fail together," she replied. "But I do not believe they will." Time passed. The small tests stopped working, then they stopped happening. Not because the watchers were satisfied, but because they could no longer tell what was signal and what was noise. Elias stood on a quiet platform overlooking Earth's orbit, watching ships come and go. He received a message from Salith. "They've withdrawn," it read. "For now." He allowed himself a slow breath. "Good," he replied. "They'll rethink their models. Or build new ones." "Always," he sent back. "But now they know patience has a counter." Salith looked out at the stars from her own vessel. She felt something close to relief, mixed with respect. The galaxy had always feared warriors who conquered. Now it was learning to respect those who endured. Humanity did not rise with fire or force. It rose by standing still when pressure demanded collapse. And Princess Salith, once certain that human warriors were only tales, now understood the truth. They were real. They were quiet, and they were already everywhere. The galaxy did not change all at once. It shifted slowly, like a long-held breath finally released. Trade routes stayed open, borders stayed quiet. On the surface, everything looked normal. But underneath, patterns rewrote themselves. Princess Salith felt it first in the questions sent to her throne. Other leaders asked about humans more often now, not direct questions. Careful ones: how did humans train their crews? How did they respond to disasters? Why did they never issue threats, even when provoked? Salith answered honestly but gently. "They focus on stability," she would say. "They prepare for failure instead of denying it." Some leaders listened, some did not. On Earth, Elias Rowan returned to a life that looked simple to outsiders. He attended briefings, reviewed data, walked quiet corridors. He did not receive medals. He did not appear in broadcasts. That was by design. Humans were careful with stories. They knew how easily stories turned into fear. Yet pressure continued to build, not from open enemies, but from uncertainty. A new alliance formed among several mid-level powers, calling itself a coordination council. Its stated goal was efficiency. Its real purpose was observation. They invited humanity to attend. Elias sat in the back of the chamber as delegates spoke. Charts filled the air. Models predicted growth, decline, instability. Humans were marked as an unknown variable. "We do not understand your restraint," one delegate said. "You have the capability to dominate logistics across half the known systems." "And yet we don't," the human representative replied calmly. "Why?" "Because domination creates resistance," she said. "And resistance wastes time." Elias watched reactions ripple through the room. Some frowned, some nodded slowly. Another delegate leaned forward. "What happens when someone forces your hand?" The human representative paused. "Then the conversation changes." The meeting ended without resolution. As usual, later, Elias walked through a garden dome built to mimic forests from dozens of worlds. He liked it here. The mix of unfamiliar plants reminded him that the galaxy was larger than fear. Salith contacted him shortly after. "They are pushing for structure," she said, "rules that favor those who move first." "Yes," Elias replied, "they always do." They wanted to find strength before someone else does. And they're worried humans don't fit the definition, he said. She sighed softly. They asked me if humanity could be trusted. And what did you say? I told them trust was the wrong question, Salith said. The right question is whether they can afford to misunderstand you. Elias smiled just slightly. The next test came without warning. A major transport network failed across 3 systems. Ships stalled. Supplies delayed. No single cause could be found. Accusations spread quietly. Humans responded as they always did. They sent teams, not soldiers, coordinators, engineers, mediators. People trained to listen first. They did not take control. They offered help. Some accepted. Some refused. Where help was accepted, systems recovered faster. Where it was refused, delays worsened. The pattern became visible. Observers noticed. So you do nothing, one analyst complained in a closed forum, and everything improves. Elias listened to the report later, expression neutral. We don't do nothing, he said. We do less. Salith faced resistance at home as well. Some members of her court argued that reliance on humans weakened Velari authority. They make us look passive, one counselor said. No, Salith replied. They make us look calm. Calm can be mistaken for weakness. Only by those who do not understand patience, she said. A private message arrived from Elias that same cycle. They're setting up another evaluation, he wrote, bigger than before. Where? She asked. Everywhere, he replied. They want to see if we fracture under distributed pressure. Salith considered this carefully. Then we should not respond together. There was a pause. Explain, Elias said. If we act as a visible unit, they will adapt, she replied. But if we act separately with shared values, they won't know where coordination ends and coincidence begins. Elias leaned back in his chair, impressed. You're learning our language. Perhaps, she said, or perhaps I am finding my own. The distributed pressure came in waves, small trade disagreements, political rumors, artificial shortages. Each problem was minor alone. Together they could have caused panic. Instead, leaders responded with unusual restraint. Some learned from humans directly. Others learned by watching results. Problems faded. Those applying pressure grew frustrated. One faction finally acted openly, issuing a declaration warning of hidden human dominance. They demanded transparency, disclosure, proof of intent. The galaxy waited. Humans responded with silence, not refusal, not denial. Silence. Days passed. Then Elias spoke not as a representative, but as a person. He addressed a small forum, transmitted publicly. We are not hiding power, he said simply. We are refusing to build our identity around it. We do not seek control, he continued. We seek continuity. He paused, letting the words settle. If that frightens you, he said, ask yourself why. The message spread quietly, not viral, steady. Salith watched from her ship, feeling something close to pride. Reactions were mixed. Some leaders felt exposed, others relieved. The faction that issued the declaration lost influence quickly. Their warnings no longer matched reality. Time moved on. Years passed. Children born after the station incident grew up hearing different stories. Not of human warriors conquering worlds, but of humans who showed up when systems failed, who stayed late, who did not leave until things worked again. Salith aged slowly. Experience softened her certainty but strengthened her resolve. Elias grew older too. His hair turned more gray, his steps slower but his presence unchanged. They met less often, but when they did, words were few and meaningful. On one such meeting, Salith asked, Do you ever regret staying quiet? Elias thought for a moment. No, he said. Noise is temporary. Influence lasts longer, she nodded. Then the galaxy will remember you differently than it remembers conquerors. That's the hope, he replied. On his final assignment, Elias stood once more on a station platform, watching traffic flow smoothly. A young officer stood beside him. Sir, she asked, were the stories true about the early days? Elias smiled faintly. Which stories? That humans were warriors, she said. He looked out at the stars. We were, he said, just not the way people expected. The galaxy continued, not perfect, not peaceful, but stable. And in that stability, humanity had found its place. Not at the center, not above, but woven quietly into everything that endured.